Bradford City continue their 2025-26 League One campaign with a home clash against Richie Wellens at Leyton Orient, and in today's video you're going to find out how both teams have got on so far this season, what my starting 11 would be for this game if I was Graham Alexander. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, then make sure to like, comment and subscribe. But my team Bradford City, we currently sit 4th in the League One table. After 34 matches, we've got 17 wins, 7 draws and 10 defeats, where we've scored 43 goals and also conceded 38. That leaves us on a positive 5 goal difference and 58 points. Our last couple of matches then have been a loss, a win, a loss, a win and a win. Pretty much every game in 2026 has been very predictable for Bradford City. We win at home and we lose away, apart from literally 2 games. But the positive about being back at Valley Parade this Saturday is the only team we have conceded to at Valley Parade in 2026 is Cardiff City, who are currently top of the table. But recently then, Bradford City had a 2-1 defeat away at Reading, where we were very comfortable for 8 to 9 minutes, winning 1-0 away from home, and it looked like Bradford City were actually going to pick up some points on the road. But we brought on centre-back Joe Wright for attacking midfielder Bobby Poynton. Not even 60 seconds later, Reading found an equaliser, and then in the 97th minute, they ended up going on to find a winner. I cannot believe, still nearly a week on now, how we managed to lose that game. We were so comfortable in it. Don't think either side really deserved to win the game, but we certainly did not deserve to lose. We also had a 1-0 win at home to Rotherham United. They obviously beat Plymouth Argyle in the following fixture, so maybe this is not actually a bad result for us. Matt Pennington scoring the only goal of the game for Bradford City with an absolute bullet header at the back post. But when you're playing against the worst away side in the division and you are one of the best home teams in the division, you would have liked a bit more comfortable than a 1-0 win, but it's 3 points, so I'm not going to complain too much. We also had a 3-1 win away at AFC Wimbledon. For some reason, we made 5 or 6 changes for this game and practically put out the second string players. Given that we've got a lot of games coming up over the next couple of weeks, it wouldn't surprise me if on Tuesday, for example, away at Port Vale, we see some of these fringe players starting at once again. I think between now and the end of the season, you've just got to play your best team, and if somebody picks up an injury, then they do. Maybe you don't play your best team for the full game, maybe you actually use your subs bench a little bit earlier than when you are 3-0 down. But awful performance, awful result, and a deserved defeat for the Bantams. We also, though, had a cracking 1-0 win at home to Stockport County. Big promotion playoff 6-pointer, and it did confirm that we have now done the double over Stockport County. I think the only side in the top 6 that we have actually done the double on so far this campaign. Sarswick scoring the only goal of the game against his former side, once again scored the winner in the reverse fixture, and this is a big 3 points for Bradford City. And we also had a fantastic 2-0 win at home to Peterborough United. Best performance of the season so far. I don't think we'll get up to the heights that we saw in this game. Obviously, it does also help that Peterborough decided to play out from the back when they're clearly not good enough to do that. But Poynton and Jackson, two boyhood Bradford City fans, scoring the only goals of the game for Bradford City, and hopefully we can see a similar type of performance in this game to the one that we saw against Peterborough. Compared though to Leyton Orient, they currently sit 21st in the League One table, occupying that final relegation spot at this moment in time. When you factor in they were in the League One playoffs last season, they have had a massive fall off, and I know they had a bad start to last season, but this season they've just been awful all throughout, and obviously it's not been helped by the big injuries to El Mazzuni and Aaron Connolly. But after 33 matches then, they've got 10 wins, 6 draws and 17 defeats, where they've scored 44 goals but also conceded at 56. They have the worst defence in the entire division, and that leaves them on a minus 12 goal difference and 36 points. Their last couple of matches then have been a loss, a win, a loss, a draw and a loss. Obviously we played Leyton Orient as the final game before Christmas, and that was kind of the start of our downfall away from home. It was actually only our 3rd league defeat of the season at the time, and obviously since then we have suffered another 7 more, so obviously not ideal. We should have won that day though. Some individual errors at the back. I think, Kieran Kelly didn't cover himself in glory on that day. Sarswick neither, missed a couple of decent opportunities. But recently then, Leyton Orient had a 3-1 defeat at home to Barnsley. David McGoldrick, we all know about the talent that he's got from his time at Notts County, scored a hat-trick in that one for Barnsley. The only goal that Leyton Orient scored just comes from a massive goalkeeping error from Barnsley. It's a free kick from about 30 yards out, straight down the middle, and it just goes through Owen Goodman. Absolutely awful goalkeeping. And looking at the stats from the game, again, Leyton Orient creating a fair few chances, but just not able to put the ball in the back of their net. They also had a 2-1 win away at Leyton Orient. Ballard finding himself on the score sheet once again. He's proved to be a very important player for Leyton Orient, but to be fair, has only scored 1 in his last 7 games, something like that. Obviously, previous to that was on a very good goal goal scoring run, got 19 goal contributions so far this season. Also scored a brace back when Leyton Orient beat us in December. So he's a player that we certainly need to be keeping our eye on. But again, this was a big relegation 6-pointer and a massive 3 points for Leyton Orient. They also had a 3-1 defeat at home to Plymouth Argyle. Just some really poor, scrappy defending in the end from Orient. I don't think they're particularly great at defending set pieces, but we're not particularly great at scoring them. They're always in the games, our Orient, but they've just not been good enough in both boxes so far this season. They also had a 0-0 draw away at Stockport County. I think this is a pretty decent point, all things considered. Looking at the stats from the game, as you would expect, Stockport have had the large share of it, but that is a good point for Orient. And they also had a very damaging 1-0 defeat at home to Port Vale, which is a big blow, that one. Before we do go any further though with today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 150 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below, would you make any changes from Saturday's defeat against Reading, and also your score prediction. It was a rare free midweek for Bradford City, so I would assume we're going to go as strong as possible for this one. In terms of my formation then for this game, I would stick with the 3-4-2-1. Clearly a formation that works incredibly well for Bradford City at Valley Parade. I'm still not 100% sure it's the perfect formation to be playing away from home, but I do think at home it is getting us results, and why would you change a winning formula? In goal for me, I would go with Sam Walker. Certainly don't think it was his best performance of the season on Saturday against Reading. I think he could be doing better for both of the goals that they do score. I think the first one, the shot is right next to him and he's just a bit too slow to react to it. Then the second one, I'd like to see my goalkeeper be a little bit more commanding there. I'm not saying it's all on him. Pennington should obviously do better for the first goal. Torre needs to do better for the second one, but the header as well for the second goal, it goes through Sam Walker. Really poor goalkeeping in my opinion. But again, when you look at the other options, Joe Hilton hasn't particularly impressed me in the EFL Trophy games. In fact, I think he has been pretty poor in a few of those games, and it shows the trust that Alexander has got in Hilton that Sam Walker was even playing some games in the EFL Trophy. But I would keep him in for this one. Like I mentioned earlier, the only team we've conceded to at Valley Parade in 2026 is at Cardiff City. That record might come to an end at some point, but hopefully another clean sheet for Sam Walker in this one. In terms of my back three then, at right centre-back, I would go with Matt Pennington. Delighted for him to get 2 goals in his last 2 matches and obviously scored an absolute screamer away at Reading. Still no idea how that ball found its way into the back of the net. I know the Reading goalkeeper wasn't particularly great, but didn't seem like the most perfect of contacts from Pennington. But either way, nobody is going to complain. Yes, he should do better with the equaliser for Reading. I'm not 100% sure what he is trying to do, and obviously we do get punished for that, but I do think he is part of our best back three, and like I previously mentioned, you have to play your best team at this stage in the season. In the middle, I would go with Aidan Baldwin. Fingers crossed his mask is going to have come before this game. Obviously he did suffer a broken nose away at Reading. I think it was Paudie O'Connor who caused the injury to him. Hopefully though his mask comes in time. Graham Alexander has said that if it does, he will play. If it doesn't, then he won't play. So fingers crossed, because Baldwin is a very important player for Bradford City, and I don't think we concede either of those goals against Reading if Baldwin is in the side. And as my left centre back then, completing my back three, I would go with Curtis Tilt. Pretty decent performance from him against Reading. No real complaints from me about that. And again, he is part of our best back three. When you think Kieran Kelly played in the reverse fixture, Curtis Tilt, I don't see him making those type of mistakes in my opinion. In terms of my midfield four then, at right wing back, I would go with Josh Nerfill. I thought he had a pretty decent performance against Reading, to be fair, and we all know about the attacking threat that he can produce down our right hand side, and I think he certainly performs better at Valley Parade than what he does away from home, so hopefully another good performance from him. In terms of my two central midfielders, firstly I would go with the captain Max Power. I think again against Reading, pretty solid performance from him. I did see a couple of people criticising his leadership, given that obviously we were leading away from home and capitulated in added time, but I don't think you can put that all onto Max Power. You know, experienced players like Pennington and Torre shouldn't have been making the mistakes that they did. Sam Walker as well, very experienced player, so I certainly don't buy into that notion, and again he's much better than Lee Evans for me. Partnering him, I would go with Jensen Metcalf, as always one of the first names on the team sheet for Bradford City. Pretty solid performance from him against Reading, and I'd like to see how he gets on in this game. Can't quite remember if Metcalf had come into the team around this sort of time where Leighton Orient we played them away from home. I'm pretty sure that he was, was, so hopefully he can have another good performance in this one. And completing my midfield four then, at left wing back I would go with Tyreek Wright. Thought it was actually a pretty poor performance from Wright on Saturday against Reading, but when we're at Valley Parade, I think Wright is a much better left wing back than Ibou Toure, who again I rate massively defensively, but going forward when you're playing at home to a team in the relegation zone, I do think Tyreek Wright is the perfect option for that. Again, if he was consistently a 10 out of 10 every week, he wouldn't be playing for Bradford City, so hopefully he can put on another good performance, get another assist like what he did against Rotherham United, or get another goal like what he did against Doncaster Rovers. It's good to see him finally start adding goal contributions to his game once again. In terms of my front three, the two attacking midfielders, they pretty much picked themselves. On the right hand side, I would go with Anthony Sarcevic, Bradford City's most important player. He actually played the full game. I'm pretty sure he played the full game against Reading and we lost, so maybe Sars is no longer our most important player, but we all know the quality that Sars does bring. I think he's one of our top goal scorers this season, top assisters. I think he's got the most goal contributions anyway this season. Obviously has missed a fair few games through injury, so again he's had the week's rest, should be starting the next 3 games now for me. Obviously not 90 minutes and all those, but he absolutely has to be starting. As my left attacking midfielder, again pretty obvious, Bobby Poynton. I thought he had a pretty decent performance against Reading. My only slight frustration is when you're playing on big pitches away at Reading, for example. Tyreek Wright, his first thought is always to come backwards. Poynton, he hasn't quite got the pace to be able to beat a man. Obviously technically he's an absolutely outstanding footballer, but I do think pace is probably his weakest attribute. It does let him down a little bit at times when we are playing on those bigger pitches where you need to have a bit more of an athlete to use that space. But again, looking at the other options in that position, nobody else can really play them. Poynton has been very good for us this season, scored all of his goals at Valley Parade as well. And as my striker then, I would go with Paul Mullin. Delighted that Will Swan is now back available from his injury, but I don't think it'd be right to just throw him in straight away. I'd have him on probably after an hour, 70 minutes, something like that, because I still do think Will Swan is our best available striker at the moment. As we know, Caden Jackson is going to be out for at least a month, having damaged his MCL, so that is a big blow. But I think Paul Mullin is then your next best option. I don't think Stephen Humphries is a striker, although he did score in the reverse fixture. Ethan Wheatley I thought was awful against Reading, and I think he's just getting worse and worse as each game goes by. He looks absolutely knackered after about 15 minutes. I think Wheatley's going to be another player that certainly does divide opinion, but I don't rate him whatsoever. I think he's lazy, his touch is poor, he's not particularly great at dribbling, his finishing is woeful. And I know he's a young player, but from what I've seen so far, it doesn't really seem to suit Bradford City's system. And for me, the biggest frustration with Wheatley is I actually don't mind you not necessarily having the ability, given that his age and all that sort of stuff, but it's always the reaction. Anytime something is not perfect to Ethan Wheatley or for Ethan Wheatley, his reaction is always head down and have a bit of a sulk rather than sprint and try and win that ball back. And that was something that I was very critical of Stephen Humphries for a couple of weeks ago, that his reaction is always pretty poor. But recently, I do think, to give Humphries a bit of credit, his reaction is always go and try and win that ball back. I've tried a skill, it's not come off, but my immediate reaction is to sprint after the ball and try and win it back. And that's what Ethan Wheatley needs to learn very quickly, or he's going to find himself at the matchday squad very soon. So I guess the next best available option is Paul Mullin. On the bench then for me, that would leave Joe Hilton, Joe Wright, Ibou Toure, Lee Evans, George Lapsley, Stephen Humphries, and also Will Swan. The players currently unavailable are Nick Powell and Caden Jackson. Hopefully Jackson is back sooner rather than later, because I do think he is Bradford City's best striker. So the players who miss out then through selection would be Harrison Ashby, Kieran Kelly, Louis Sibley, Joe White, and also Ethan Wheatley. So of those 5, 4 of them were signed in January by Bradford City. Going back to that January window, it looks like an absolute catastrophe, doesn't it? I'm not even talking about players who left, just signings in particular. Only Caden Jackson has looked like a very big improvement for Bradford City, and again, he's going to be missing for potentially the rest of the season if his recovery and rehab doesn't go very well. So it looks like an absolutely shocking transfer window, which is surprising for David Sharp. I think he's excellent at recruiting in the summer, but it's now 2 January transfer windows in a row where I think he's got more misses than hits personally. But anyway, I'm leaving it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 150 likes, as I said at the start of today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. What is your score prediction for this match? What would your starting 11 be as well? Would you make any changes from Saturday's defeat against Reading? Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one. Fingers crossed we get back to winning ways, and then we start winning away from home. So after this one, our next 3 games are away. I'll see you all very soon.